Hey, welcome back to the Savannah African Art Museum. My name is Maxime, and today we'll be focusing on terracotta. I'll be picking 3 pieces, and we'll just go right into them. But a bit about terracottas first. Terracotta is the process of making earthenware through baking earth, which is where the word terracotta comes from. Terra, earth, cotta, cooked. And so we'll be focusing on a few pieces here. The terracotta has a very long and interesting history in Africa. One of the earliest terracottas we can trace, besides the many pottery shards that have been found, but that is culture specific, is for example the Nok of Nigeria. And it plays an interesting history because of course you have very interesting forms of earthenware, which is what I'm going to focus on today. But even more interestingly is how the technology flows across the region. And an easy example, for example, is from the Nok in Nigeria to the clay cores of Benin, which were used for bronze casting. And so there's many connections to be drawn, but today I'm going to focus on the interesting shapes and forms you can find. So we'll get started. All right, so the first one here is a beer vessel from the Kalabari area of Nigeria. And I'll just jump right into it. So what you can probably see are these many exit points, let's just say, through which you can put in a straw, which is what you would have used to drink this through this vessel. It's in the round, and so there are multiple points like this all the way around. The purpose of this vessel was to gather to community members, community leaders in a parley, let's say, basically a get-together where they discuss whatever affairs of the moment. And one of the best purposes of it, and the way it is made and why I find this design so interesting, is that it keeps everyone on a level ground. Everything is done at the same height, and you can even imagine for political reasons why it would be important that everyone drink from the same vessel, not just to bond people as one or bring a sense of togetherness, but also, very pragmatic security reasons. For example, the fact that when you're all drinking from the same vessel, no one can tamper with it. And it's also interesting to point out, especially when you think of the beer vessel, that it is the very, very direct and practical way that it was made, with the brewing of beer in mind, where during the process it would separate, and so it has sediment at the bottom and remnants at the top. And so with the way the straws would be inserted, you'd hit the golden zone, let's just say, of the beer where it is just right. And this is even better emphasized with the pattern that is all over the surface, which we assume is made with a corn husk, which is one very popular technique in the region. And this just goes to show not just the ingenuity in terms of the shape and the form, but even the materials that are used to make not just the shape itself, but even the pattern of the vessel. And so that's the first one, and one of my favorite ones in this collection, and we'll move on to the next one. All right, so now we have the second vessel here, which is a cooking pot. This is definitely one of my favorites, just because of its simplicity and its practicality. The two really converge to make what is my third favorite aspect, a beautiful pot. And this is from Nigeria by the Chamba peoples. And there's really not too much to say, but a lot to admire about this pot. You have, of course, the very nice roundness right here. You also have the pattern across the rim. And of course, my favorite part, which is these horn-like elements that would keep the pot above the flame. And so yeah, really not too much to say to it, but a lot to admire about it. again, just because of how simple and to the point the pot has been made, and is also can be used for a, it doesn't really take an expert to immediately understand how direct and simple the purpose and the make of this pot is. So we'll move on to the next and final piece in this collection close-up. So the final vessel we have here is a two-headed vessel from the Mangbetu peoples of what is now the Democratic Republic of Congo. This is another very creative vessel, in my opinion, simply because of one, the way it's made and the way it's linked in the middle, but also the narrative that it tells. Now, most of this is an assumption because we don't know exactly what, when, or how this was used. But a lot of the details, however, really lead me into conclusions that this very much had to do with some sort of union, perhaps a marriage, perhaps a coming together of two communities. Whatever it may be, we can discuss a lot of the elements we do know. Again, this is another terracotta, and this is of the Mangbetu peoples of this currently the Democratic Republic of the Congo. They are a very, very rich culture, although a culture I personally have become much more interested in recently. They have many very intricate aspects to their culture, such as the headdress that you can see on the figures, which is not just a hairstyle, but also a practice of head forming that they do from a very young age, where they would wrap up the cranium so as to get some beautified, or in their opinion, beautified forms of the human head. And that just the headdress itself highlights one aspect of the very intricate culture, but also that the headdress itself is a depiction of the hairstyles they wore. And that again reveals another very interesting and fine aspect of this African culture. But again, back to the vessel itself, the openings are in the tops of the headdress, and so from the handle, you can assume that one person would have taken a sip on one side, and the other side of the vessel would allow the other person to take the next sip, or in whatever order. And again, you have this idea, just like in the beer vessel we saw previously, of sharing, community, and coming together, where again, with the link at the bottom of this vessel, you can see that they would have been drinking the same beverage. And so you have, again, the idea of union, not just playing out in physical or diplomatic gestures, but also in the very form and language that a lot of these items take, where the narrative is present inside of the objects themselves. And I feel like that's what really makes it a great art piece, is that even without the context around it available, you can begin to have an idea of the vessel itself and the peoples, not just in the depictions, but also even with the emotions. For example, you have very much the closeness of the two heads, and that reveals a lot of intimacy, which leads me again to conclude that perhaps it was a union, because it's not just a coming together of two peoples, but physically, but also as it appears intimately. So thank you for joining this collection close-up. I hope you enjoyed the video. Like us on YouTube, tell us what you think in the comments section. And of course, the more you follow this channel, the more information like this we have for you. And we only enjoy sharing. So again, thank you for tuning in. Like and subscribe, and see you next time.